Kitco Mining, special coverage of the National Bank of Canada Capital Markets CEO Mining Conference, is brought to you by Agnico Eagle.
Canada's next copper mine is on the verge of production. Hello and welcome to Kitco Mining with me, Paul Harris, here at the 2025 NBC Capital Markets CEO Mining Conference in London, England. Joining me today to discuss this is Dan Myerson, Executive Chair of Foran Mining. Dan, welcome to Kitco.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Now, Dan, you are building the McIlvenna Bay project in Saskatchewan in Canada. The construction decision was made in July. The phase one capital cost is about $800 million, and that will produce 65 million pounds a year of copper. First production is expected early 2026, I understand. How has that development gone?
It's been a journey, that's for sure. I'd say, how has it gone? Well, we've had to overcome a significant amount of adversity. A couple examples of that would be port closures, airline strikes, tariff wars and supply chains getting upended, capital overruns, wildfires and evacuating your site and protecting your people. So yeah, we've gone through a lot. But all that being said, it's gone incredibly well, and we'll be producing first copper, zinc, gold, and silver in February next year, which is just such an incredible achievement. I couldn't be more proud of the team.
Yeah, just 3 months away. Well, overcoming adversity is what miners do, isn't it?
Exactly.
And in terms of the timing, in some ways it couldn't be better. The copper price is getting stickier, around $5 per pound, the gold price at $4,000 per ounce, silver at $50 per ounce. So you've got a good, healthy price environment to put your first production into.
Yeah, and zinc around $3,000 a ton. Everyone always forgets about zinc, but zinc's going to be a big surprise, I think, to people next year, as well as copper. I think typically, we always see the precious metals go first and then the base start to follow. We're very fortunate, as you just described in Foran, that we produce all four of those metals. So yeah, very, very excited. I think the timing is going to be very, very lucky.
And this is just going to be the first step, isn't it? Because you've got a phase two expansion that you'll be looking to bring on. At what point will you look to sort of execute on that? How far? What will the timing for that be?
Yeah, so we'd like to do that as soon as possible. For us, it's all about capital structure and balance sheet management. So, we've been very conservative in the way we set up the company. So we didn't want to put any streams or royalties on it because we liked the nature of having production and exposure to all four metals in a meaningful way. So we've just financed the project through equity and debt. And then as we ramp up next year and begin paying down our debt, we'll look at refinancing that project finance and then look at going straight away into phase two. And then we'll start potentially looking more at a phase three and a phase four later on as we expand the district.
In terms of the refinancing, with the high metals prices, we're seeing some very sort of creative, non-traditional sort of financing things. There seems to be much more flexibility out there in terms of notes and getting better coupon or lower coupon. What are your thoughts? What do you think you can achieve once you're in production and cash flowing?
We're working on quite a few creative structures right now. Hard to say exactly just which way we'll go or what we'll do, but look, everything we do is we try to maximize the value per share. So we want to create value for our owners and shareholders and stakeholders. So that's our focus. At the same time, just going through a build, it's probably the riskiest time for a single asset company ever. So we'll be coming out of that very, very shortly. Yeah, very, very exciting time in that sense, and where the balance sheet and where the company will go from there.
Okay. Now, Saskatchewan is perhaps not the first jurisdiction people think of when it comes to copper mines. Obviously, in Canada, people think of British Columbia. Elsewhere in the Americas, you've got the United States, you've got Mexico, Chile, Peru, etc. You see further potential there as well. You've got exploration upside the Tesla zone, for example. Talk to us about the broader potential for copper and base metals in Saskatchewan.
Sure. Look, it's a very good question. So a lot of people always thought Saskatchewan was just sort of potash and uranium. But just across the border in Manitoba, they've been mining copper, gold, silver, zinc for over 100 years. They actually just shut down the 777 mine about 3 years ago there, which went for almost 90 years. I think the biggest thing about that is people don't realize that sort of borders are man-made, but geological belts are not. And people have just never looked properly in Saskatchewan, but there's an entire district there. So we hope to be producing copper, gold, silver, and zinc for 100 years there. The other thing what I'd say about Saskatchewan, it's probably one of the best jurisdictions I've ever worked in and been lucky enough to be in. I'd say probably one of the best in the world.
And Saskatchewan, as you mentioned, it's got a long history of uranium production, long history of potash production. So does that mean it's got a very good regulatory environment, taxation environment, etc.? Exactly
that. The regulator there is probably one of the best I think I've ever worked with, not just in Canada out of all the provinces, but in the world. Super engaged and just very, very pragmatic and very, very constructive. So very, very lucky.
Now, in the sort of broader scene in Canada, the federal government is getting more and more behind the mining sector. It's getting more and more behind critical minerals such as copper, such as zinc. The Canadian Premier Mark Carney is advocating for accelerated permitting, imagine that, and other things. And you've also received sort of benefits from the government. You've a tax credit from Saskatchewan, investment from the Strategic Innovation Fund, and funding from NR Canada, also NRCan, and the Canada Growth Fund is a shareholder. So it seems that Foran has done very well from the government. It's got a lot of support from the government. Beyond those sort of financial aspects, what sort of support have you received from the government?
Yeah, so I'd say, just first things first, Prime Minister Carney, Minister Hodgson, they've only just really taken over. It's only been in place for about 6 months. They've done such an incredible amount within those 6 months, probably more than the governments before them. So we're very, very grateful to have them. I think, Foran being designated as a project of national priority and national interest through the Major Projects Office, we've received, as you said, not only just access to capital, but just an array of support in a number of functions, whether that be help on supply chain, labor, etc., things like that. But ultimately, the capital is probably the biggest thing that's deprived in the mining sector today and what's needed. So we've been very, very grateful.
Now, the noises coming out of Ottawa regarding the mining sector are very positive, but I want to ask, do they actually hit the right note? And I want to sort of couch that question in the context of the big news in the copper space, which is the potential merger between Anglo-American and Teck Resources. Obviously, a large Canada component to that. The government said, it's reviewing the transaction. Its concern is, are there going to be enough head office jobs in Vancouver and British Columbia? For me, it seems that the focus is perhaps misplaced because Canada needs more mining jobs in the field. It needs 500 jobs at a new mine rather than perhaps 20 or 50 more jobs at a head office in Vancouver. What's your view of things?
I'm not really involved in the deal, so I always like to say, you need to have the right to have an opinion. So I don't feel like I've got the right to have an opinion on that one per se, but I fully agree with you. I'd say for the mining industry as a whole, where we lack is on the people side and the labor. That's what we need. It's capital and people. So I agree with you. I think there'd be more of a focus on that would be fantastic, as well as more projects in Canada, more building in Canada. Unfortunately, Canada, if I just talk about copper mines, and they've probably shut down more mines in the last 3 or 4 years than they've had open by a drastic way. I mean, Foran's the only sort of new project actually coming online in Canada in terms of copper. But in the last 5 years, we've had Langwa, Matagami, 777. We had the smelter as well in Manitoba also shut down. So there's a real shortage. I think you'll probably see other mines also probably shut next year, which is a bit sad. But that's what Canada needs, in my opinion, is to encourage new investment in projects.
And have those mines shut because they've been exhausted? Are they shut because the economics no longer work, or other factors?
I think it's a variety, but largely it's because they've been depleted. I mean, these mines are all 60, 70-year-olds, 60, 70-year-old type mines. That's just the nature of these assets. They go for a very long time, but there's just been such a lack of investment over the last few years into the sector, and now it's sort of coming home to roost.
Now, that scarcity presumably will put Foran Mining into a potentially a very good position, because there's companies chasing copper deposits and copper mines. The Anglo-American Teck transaction, $53 billion, is obviously emblematic of that. There are rumours over the past weekend that BHP would look to renew its bid for Anglo-American. Apparently, that's not happening. But in terms of the broader M&A space in the copper sector, you're going to become a mid-tier producer. There's not that many mid-tier producers in the copper space, not when one compares it with the gold space. So how do you see your sort of growth trajectory going forward?
Yeah, I think you make a very good point. Like, if you compare copper and gold, like I'd say like copper assets, particularly those in good jurisdictions, are like hen's teeth. They're just extremely rare. And from an investment perspective, for me and the numbers that I've always looked at, the greatest returns you'll have as an investment will be in sort of the mid-tier rather than the large caps. So we're very excited to be part of a growing mid-tier and company. I hate using the word mid-tier because I find it associates with average, and I never want to be average. But be that as may, in terms of market cap and size, that's where you typically will see the greatest returns for shareholders. So for us, we're extremely excited because it's been a tough 2 years going through a build. As we started in the conversation. So to be coming out the other side now and be part of that growing sector, I think will be very rewarding for our shareholders and our team.
There's a number of other junior developers with projects of a similar size sort of getting towards that construction phase. Copper projects tend to be more expensive than gold projects, so raising the capital can be quite a challenge for a non-cash flowing junior. Does that give you an opportunity once you're in production and cash flowing? You're already there, you're already doing it, you've got a team that's just built or building a mine ready to go perhaps on the next project. Does that put you in a good position to perhaps do a deal, merge, buy one of these other companies that are coming up?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. I think we've just been so solely focused on our own build that we haven't really been looking, but definitely, because in my opinion, I think that like the three challenges in mining are permitting, that's or challenges, risks, or opportunities, whatever you want to call it. Permitting, financing, and then actually building, execution, and the team and the people. And there's just such a lack of that number three on the people. There's such a lack of the capital, and then on the permitting, there's just mines haven't been permitted for so long. So I think we were the first project to be permitted in the province of Saskatchewan in 20 years. So I think having gone through that and having all that is a huge amount of value that's probably not appreciated by the market. But again, our job is to keep demonstrating and keep doing that. And I think through execution, you will demonstrate value creation.
Okay. Now, one of your shareholders is Agnico Eagle Mines. Yeah. They've obviously got a great strength in the gold space, great strength in the Abitibi in Quebec, as well as other jurisdictions. How involved are they? What are you able to sort of lean on them and benefit from their knowledge and experience and contacts, etc.?
So I think like to your previous question, Agnico Eagle is a perfect example of that. So Agnico Eagle is probably, I'm biased, obviously they're a shareholder, but I'd say they're the best mining company in the world. And I say that for a few reasons. You look at the value creation that they have had for their shareholders over time, how they run their balance sheet, how they run their operations, where their operations actually are. As a company as a whole, I think they're just incredible. And what built Agnico Eagle was largely, it really got going off LaRonde, which when they started LaRonde was a zinc mine. And then they had silver, then they found copper. As they get deeper, you get more copper, more gold. It's been incredible. But that team that built LaRonde has been instrumental in building other operations and growing the company. Just such an incredible amount of respect for Agnico Eagle. And for us, just getting access to them and those people, it's what I was saying about that number 3 point, the people, just being able to talk through ideas, technically, challenges, all that kind of stuff, and have the access to them so readily has been amazing. We try not to abuse it because we understand they're very, very busy, but they are super helpful and just incredible partners. I just can't speak highly enough of them.
We love them as well. They're obviously sponsoring our presence here at the MB event here in London. Agnico is obviously very well known as a major gold producer, but some of their recent sort of transactions or investments have been getting more and more exposure to base metals, obviously copper and zinc through you guys, but also with Teck in Mexico, a big zinc component there. So they're perhaps returning to the roots to a certain extent with some of these investments. Okay, so McIlvenna Bay production in February, that's obviously the key catalyst coming up for 2026. In terms of the rest of the year, what else can we expect to see from the company next year?
Yes, next year is going to be a super catalyst-rich year for the company. First production starts February. Then we hope to achieve commercial production by middle of the year. At the same time, we will be releasing our maiden resource on Tesla in the second half of the year, and our first technical study on the phase 2 expansion with Tesla as well. So huge amount of catalysts coming, we're very, very excited.
Excellent. Well, exciting times. Good luck with the rest of the build. Look forward to hearing about that as and when that starts getting into production. Dan Myerson, thank you very much for joining us today.
Paul Harris, thank you very much.
And we have a lot more to come from the 2025 NBC Capital Markets CEO Mining Conference from London. So stay tuned and hit that subscribe button. I'm Paul Harris, and this is Kitco Mining.
Kitco Mining, special coverage of the National Bank of Canada Capital Markets CEO Mining Conference, is brought to you by Agnico Eagle.